Last fall, I decided to take a road trip across the country. I had a little money saved up, a backpack with essentials, and a sense of adventure. I wasn't in a rush, so I planned to hitchhike my way from town to town. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I was somewhere in the middle of nowhere, just a long stretch of road surrounded by dense woods. It was getting late, and the sun was starting to set. I hadn't seen a car for hours. I was beginning to worry I'd have to spend the night outside when I saw headlights in the distance. I stuck out my thumb and hoped for the best. The car slowed down and stopped next to me. It was an old, beat-up pickup truck. The driver leaned over and opened the passenger door. He was an older man with a scruffy beard and a friendly smile. He asked where I was heading, and I told him I was trying to get to the next town. He nodded and told me to hop in. As we drove, we made small talk. He told me his name was Joe and that he was a local farmer. He seemed nice enough, and I started to relax. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the mood in the truck shifted. The woods on either side of the road grew darker and more oppressive. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the occasional chirp of crickets. Joe suddenly got quiet. I glanced over at him, and his friendly smile was gone. His eyes were fixed on the road ahead, and his grip on the steering wheel tightened. I felt a knot of anxiety form in my stomach. I tried to make conversation again, but he didn't respond. The silence was suffocating. After what felt like an eternity, Joe spoke. His voice was low and serious. He asked if I believed in ghosts. I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking, but his expression didn't change. He told me about a local legend, a story of a hitchhiker who had vanished on this very road many years ago. People said her spirit still wandered the area, looking for a ride. I felt a chill run down my spine. I wanted to change the subject, but Joe kept talking. He said some people who had given her a ride claimed she would disappear from their car without a trace. Others said they saw her standing by the side of the road only to find their car wouldn't start when they stopped for her. The truck slowed to a crawl, and Joe pointed to a spot on the side of the road. He said this was where she was last seen. I peered out the window, but all I saw were shadows and trees. My heart was pounding in my chest. I told Joe I'd heard enough, but he ignored me and pulled over. I asked him what he was doing, but he just smiled that creepy smile again. He told me to get out and take a look. I refused, but he leaned over and opened my door, practically shoving me out of the truck. I stumbled onto the gravel and he drove off, leaving me in the dark. I stood there, shaking, unsure of what to do. The darkness felt like it was closing in on me. I decided to start walking, hoping I'd reach the next town soon. As I walked, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there. My mind was racing. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, but the footsteps kept coming, getting closer and closer. I started to run. The footsteps matched my pace, always just behind me. I didn't dare look back. I could see lights up ahead, the faint glow of a town in the distance. I pushed myself harder, my legs burning from the effort. Just as I reached the edge of the town, the footsteps stopped. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath. When I looked up, I saw a woman standing under a street lamp. She was pale, with long, dark hair and a vacant expression. She looked at me for a moment before turning and walking away. I never saw her again. I stumbled into a diner looking disheveled and terrified. The waitress gave me a concerned look and asked if I was okay. I nodded and asked for a cup of coffee. As I sat there trying to calm down, I realized I had no idea what had happened back there. All I knew was that I never wanted to hitchhike again. To this day, I can't explain what I experienced. Was it just an overactive imagination, or did I really encounter something supernatural on that dark road? All I know is, if you're ever driving through that area at night and see a hitchhiker, think twice before stopping.